so much for being here. It's cold out there. We appreciate you being here. We're excited to see you, and it's going to be a great day. All right. Yes. And I want to thank all these incredible women for joining us. Thank you so much. What an incredible conversation we're going to have, and we can just jump right into it. So I'm Ray, and excited to sort of talk a little bit about, giving a sense of our career journeys and definitely getting into all of your questions. And usually before I start, I like to ask a couple questions of the audience to understand, where you all are at. And of course, you're all in different places in your school and post-grad and pre-grad and all of that good stuff. Do we have some folks out here who are interested in being producers? Okay, great. Writers, directors, all right. Folks who are interested in being creative executives, working at, excellent. Anything else you want to shout out, what you want to do? Showrunner. Great. Marketing and sales, okay, great. All right, wonderful. Say it again? Production management, look at that. Fantastic. It's so good to know and understand what you all are interested in so that we can also be aware and speak to that. And so, very exciting, and love to hear that diversity. And so let's dig in. Guess we can start with you. Brittany, if you want to just give us a little bit of a background on where it is that you work now, and just a little sense of your history.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having us today, and excited to share our stories. Today, I am actually started in March at Sphere Entertainment. So has anyone been to Sphere in Vegas? Okay, well.
I was there on the opening night of U2.
Oh, well.
It was amazing. Okay, it's my friend's 50th birthday. We did it up.
Very okay. So I help lead our sales and sponsorship team. So what that means is, if you've seen the Sphere, hopefully the outside we call the exosphere. So while I'm not the exact creative person, I get to work with all of our creative leads all the time, who are incredible. So we can touch on that, knowing that there's a lot of creative focus in the room. And then we're a new venue. So if anyone has been to MSG and you've seen it's been there for years and years, there's tons of entitlement spaces and lounge spaces by partners. So we're building that out inside the venue as well, working with many Fortune 500 companies to discuss, would a major corporation take over a lounge space or the atrium or things like that. And really, we always say sometimes, ask the question, because we're a young new venue and you never know what we're going to be able to do. And what led me there was, before that, some time, close to 9 years at Google, both in partnership roles as well as direct sales, and then started my career more on the television side, focused on television buying and selling, both at WPP, the agency, as well as selling. At the time, it was Viacom, but lots of names have changed, so Paramount now.
Great. Thank you, Brittany.
Good morning. This is wonderful to be here. I've been in this seat I don't know how many times at this point, and so please take advantage of this opportunity, much like I have. And so I am the CEO and president of the Emma Bowen Foundation, and we support what I like to refer to as the next generation of C-suite leaders, the next generation of broadcasters and journalists, showrunners and producers, and all the things that you all just said you're interested in. We ensure that we partner with organizations like Hearst and the Center of Communication to ensure that you have a place to land in the summer for an internship, so that the goal is, over the course of your summers, you will have earned the right to have trust, brand management, you will understand the way the business works, such that when you graduate, you transition from being a student to an employee at any one of the 40-plus partner companies that we have, of which Hearst is one. And sidebar, KB and I work closely together because she is the chair of my board. So when you talk about people see you and the magnifying glass is out and you don't know, she and I were board members together for about 5 years before the transition occurred for me. So you never know who you're sitting next to. Look to the left of you and the right of you, because you don't know how you'll influence, that's right, each other's careers. And so I am with the foundation now, but it's a serendipitous story insofar as I started as a mentor to 4 lovely students, much like you all in the room. And I fell in love with them, fell in love with the foundation, and then I was gifted the board seat. And then I was on the board for 5 years. And when I was transitioning away from HBO after sweet 16 years, and I thought I was taking a year off to be a mom and a wife, God had other plans, and he said no. And so I consulted for just a few hours a month for the foundation. Then the CEO left, and he said, Nikki, I have something to tell you. And I was like, you better not be leaving me. And he was like, well, I got an offer that I can't refuse, and I have to go. Would you consider interim CEO and president? And that was supposed to be for 6 months, turned into almost a year. I fell in love with the staff. I fell in love with the board, because it's very different being a board member versus being at the helm of the organization. And they said, well, we were just waiting for you to say yes. And so I said yes, and it's now 5 years. I love it. Prior to that, as you know, 16 years with HBO overseeing talent management. So to the extent that you have questions about, is your ladder up against the right wall? Are you sure? Are you clear? It's okay if you're not. And we can talk about what that looks like. And I'd like to, at some point, talk about mental health and wellness to ensure that the foundation is strong. Ooh. KB.
Thank you, Nikki.
Wow.
Thank you.
I have to follow this. Good morning. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Catherine Barnett. I head up human resources for Hearst Television. And if you're native to New York City, you may not know Hearst for local television. We own and operate local television stations across the United States. And I have the pleasure of being the HR leader, the culture leader, the people leader for our employees. We have about 4,000 employees. Prior to being here, I've been here in New York for about 12 years. And prior to this, I was with Hearst in another division. I was in their newspaper division. I was in Houston at their daily paper there, the Houston Chronicle, and then later I was in Seattle at a paper that they owned in Seattle, which is no longer, the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. I was always in the human resources area, and I love HR. I love being someone who is setting other people up for success. And with my role at Hearst Television, I've had a great opportunity to be at events like this, to meet Nikki and to be part of the Emma Bowen Foundation. When I first started with Hearst Television, my then boss, David Barrett, who is a past chair of the board for the Center for Communication, he invited me to, and he was also on the board for the Emma Bowen Foundation, he invited me to be his +1 on all these different events, for the Emma Bowen events and for the Center for Communication events, where I had these opportunities to interact with you, the future of media. And it's been really thrilling to have these moments with you and to be able to set other people up for success, which is, I think, in HR, what HR is all about. We're here to set our colleagues up for success and to see them shine and to thrive at their highest level. So I know we all represent companies and organizations who desire to do that, and I think you being here, identifying that, hey, there's something called the Center for Communication, and there's an organization, a center here at BRIC, like identifying these types of organizations and hitching your wagon to them, I think is a really smart idea. So we're so excited to talk to you this morning and to hear your questions and later to network with you.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, as you can see, we have an incredible set of women here to speak with you today, and I'll also tell you a little bit about my background quickly, especially since I'm hearing what some of you all are interested in. I'm the founder of Culture House, and we are a media company that makes film and television. We also make immersive experiences, and we're a cultural consultant for a lot of companies like Paramount and like Viacom. And some of our TV shows, we made a show about Black Twitter for Hulu. We made a show called The Hair Tales, about black hair and beauty with Oprah for Hulu. We did a show about women in hip hop for Netflix, and we're really interested in sitting at the intersection of pop culture and politics and thinking about how we can use entertainment to push and shape the culture. And I think what's interesting is I've also worked inside of companies. I worked at Viacom for many years, and I eventually went to start my own business with a few partners. And we run this production company, which is extremely difficult, but it is such that we run all of the productions for all of our shows. So for those of you who are interested in being producers, there's many different ways to be a producer. And for production companies like mine, independent production companies, some of those production companies do something called running production services, and some do not. Some are more creative executives, and they sort of get involved, and then they bring a company like mine on to support, to actually run the nuts and bolts of production. So a company like mine does both. So we have, the creative executiveship, and we do that with some other companies and projects, but then we also have shows that we run end to end. So we work with line producers, production management, all of that as well. So there's lots of different ways to show up as a producer. And I think what's interesting probably about all of these women and myself, as you can see, we all come from, there's no straight line in this business. You sort of get your hands dirty and sort of start to see what you're good at, what you enjoy, and then see where it leads you. And so that's something that I really enjoyed about all of your stories, kind of that you've come from places and it's perhaps been a bit surprising where you've ended up, which is wonderful. And I think for me, the lesson for that is when you're first getting into the industry is try all the experiences. Don't be so sure that this is exactly the thing or that's the thing. Something might be in front of you that might just be great. And just get in there and have lots of experiences. For me as a producer, the thing that I think makes me good at what I do is I have worked on every kind of project you can imagine, like in somebody's basement in Long Island and like on a, multi-million-dollar feature film. And that's given me a lot of exposure. So I think that's really important to think about. And so as you all are entering the workforce, I think something that is interesting is how do you speak to folks like this and say, hey, I'm interested in getting involved, and I'd love to hear from you all. Is that when you're talking to young people, what are some of the things that you're looking for in your interaction with them to say, hey, okay, this person is sort of got their head on straight and I'd be interested in investing in them. I'd love to hear for you all to know how you should be showing up.
Absolutely. I would say curiosity, excitement. We were discussing before. If someone gives you the opportunity to meet in person, I know oftentimes post-COVID, it's like we're so used to screens, all of us do it occasionally. It would just be easier. Meet in person because it makes such a difference on both sides. Because oftentimes when you're networking and you're looking to figure out where you might want to move and shift to in a career, you're interviewing them as well. You want to make sure it's a great culture fit. And it's hard to tell on a screen. You want to make sure you're meeting those people in person. The other thing I would do would be look around and have curiosity, not just about your direct team, but especially as you grow in your career, I've learned so much the importance of the cross-functional teams. It's never an I. If I am interviewing someone and they continuously use the word I, that is a huge red flag to me, because whether it was at Viacom, Google, and now Sphere, nothing gets accomplished without an army of people. So if we continue to hear that word I, it's probably not going to work well, especially in today's collaborative culture. And again, honesty. The one quick story I'll share, when I was interviewing at Google, I was the TV girl interviewing at one of the largest digital companies in the world. Of course, I wanted to come into the interview and make it clear how much digital I knew. I didn't know that much about digital. And my final interview, I think it was my 7th interview, I'm with my top boss, and he asked me how much of my career has been digital versus television. And my stomach plummeted, because all you want to do is say, 50-50 at least, but you go back to true honesty. And I said, I'd love to say it's more, I can't wait to learn, but it's about 10 to 15% digital and 85 to 90% television. I got the job, and he said if you had said anything more than 20%, we wouldn't have hired you. We didn't want another digital person. We needed your television background. Wow. So just always remember, be honest to yourself. And that's oftentimes why you're getting the job. And then I stayed at Google 9 years, so it was a great culture fit. But that one question could have made or break the whole situation.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful and important to remember too, that the thing that you think you're supposed to say is almost never the thing. Because if you stick with what it actually is, then you got nothing to worry about.
What I like about that is my advice that I give folks you all in the room, but I also tell my peers who are probably well advanced in their career, interview with organizations you have no desire to work for. Go and meet with the people, yes, who work for the organizations that you're interested in. Shadow them. Sometimes everything won't come where you can benefit from being paid for the assignment or for being able to be in the building. My advice is you sharpen what you love, what you are excited about, your curiosity. It's practice. So it's no different than getting ready for an interview, and I tell students, get in front of your bathroom mirror or your bedroom mirror and practice. Ask yourself the questions. With AI, go to ChatGPT, pull up questions so that you're not walking into rooms cold with no context. So practice. And the best practice is I interviewed with had to be 60 companies when I left Morgan Stanley before joining HBO.
Wow.
Because I knew I wanted to go into media and entertainment. To your very point, I was honest about what I knew and what I didn't know. I put a big T in the middle of a legal pad, and I put what my strengths were and my development areas. And then I just said, hell. I went and interviewed with companies I had no desire to work for. And when I tell you I had so much fun, my interviewing skills were on 10, so that by the time you do get in front, somebody's laughing, but hey, Max, good morning.
Hey, Max.
By the time you do get in front of who you love, your ideal company, your passion, the space that you're like, I'm gonna thrive, you're not nervous. You don't have that feeling in the pit of your stomach, your palms aren't all sweaty, because you've already worked out your nerves. So my advice is practice. Both practice your interpersonal skills. We were having a conversation about COVID, unfortunately, destroyed so much of what your experience should have been in person. Working on your interpersonal skills. Eye contact is still important. A handshake. Please don't give limp handshakes, like, where you barely grab the person's hand, or it's like this. Firm handshakes, because this is a signature of who you are before you actually get to open your mouth and tell people all about the fabulousness of you, right? And so your external, be mindful of those. I hate that we call them soft skills. They're hard skills because not everyone has them. Emotional intelligence, you get all of that by practicing. So go and interview with places you could care less about, have the experiences, learn, fall, get up again, dust yourself off, and keep it pushing so that by the time you get where you really want to be, you're ready.
Yes, that's great. Thank you, Nikki.
Amen to all of that.
All right.
I agree
Catherine.
with everything that Brittany and Nikki have said here. I'll add to that by saying I very much always appreciate curiosity, and it's also good to demonstrate you've done your homework. And I think in this day and age, it's really easy to do homework. You can find out a lot about a company and the people who work there by going online and seeing where they are online and reading up on whatever their latest news is and who works for them. So I find it, we talk about, when you're interviewing, it's a little bit like dating, and you want to get to know someone. You don't want to tell your whole story in that first meeting. But you do want to get to know someone, and it's flattering, I think, to an employer if you're demonstrating that you've done some homework by talking about what you've learned about the company and doing a deep dive on their career site, learning about who are they as a company, what are their values, resonating with something that they've announced recently. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that you can grab that's going to demonstrate to the employer oh, this isn't a warm body, this isn't a robot, this is a thinker. This is someone who's going to dive in and who's going to embrace things. So that's a really easy pro tip for you. Make sure, especially when you get to that point in the interview, you're like, what questions do you have? You can't be a blank canvas at that point. Do your homework and come up with what the questions are going to be, because that will also impress the employer to realize oh, this is someone who's going to be going above and beyond and being able to add to the conversations.
The only other thing I'd say too is a thank you note. It does not take much time to send even a 3-sentence email. And I've recently interviewed, and I was shocked from interviewing several years ago to interviewing now, the amount of thank you notes. And right away, I cut the people that didn't send the thank you notes.
I've done that too. I've been like, wow, it wouldn't have been that hard. I also like in a thank you note where, especially if the individual's meeting with multiple people, just know behind the scenes we're all comparing our thank you notes. And if you're doing exactly the same thing for each one of us, that's not great. It's not a good look for you.
And if you can parrot something that came up very specifically in your conversation with Brittany, specifically in your conversation with Nikki, specifically with your conversation with me, that makes a difference as well.
And thank the HR person too. I've been shocked the amount of times that they're like, they sent me a note too. I'm like, what? Like, they're working their job. They want to help you get the job, hopefully, but thank them. They're on your team. Like, make sure they're on your team with you to help you. And as you move on, they're also going to be there with you, hopefully, if you get the offer, to help negotiate the deal. So, like, get everyone on board, because hopefully they'll be your colleagues. And then you already have great resources on your first day.
True, and I think what's difficult about looking for a job, you have to go into sales mode. You got to be a seller. We've got someone over here who wants to be a seller, so she's probably really good at this. But the majority of us aren't sellers, and so it's hard to shift gears and turn into like, I need to promote and market myself constantly to get this job. And you do have to shift into that gear. You've got to find that gear, shift into it. You could exactly be the right person for the job, but you need to be able to express that to the employer.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you. That was so
You
great.
were into it.
Yeah, no. I was super into it because it's all of that makes such sense, and I love the specificity of it because it is true that simple things do make a difference, and being really specific and trying to not be generic. I can't tell you how many generic kind of outreaches I get, even just cold on our website or this, and I don't even look at them because it just feels like it's just been sort of generated and sent out to everybody. So that, to me, that's not effective. I think it's all about specificity, and it's all about, and the thing I would also say to young people is really think about, obviously as you grow in your career, you'll start to sort of hone your skills, but when you're entry level and just kind of coming in, so much of what you have to offer is yourself and your willingness to learn, because you don't have 10 years or 20 years of experience yet. So demonstrating that you are able to come in and be collaborative, and that you also are willing to come in and learn, so really showing that. And of course talking about your skills, but really what you have to show is you, right? And go ahead.
No, I wanted to add that yes, show you, but it's also say yes to everything that someone asks you to do early in your career, right? You're not allowed yet to have a shit bucket list. You're just not. We are, because we've been around long enough to be able to negotiate what we're going to do relative to what our teams will do.
That's
but
right.
You're just starting out. Say yes to everything.
That's right.
What I want you to know is it is just as important for you to know the things that you don't want to do as much as it is for you to know the things you want to do. But you'll only get there by saying yes to it all.
100%, and I think especially in production, sometimes if you're coming up in production, my first job in production, I don't even think this job exists anymore, is I was a tape runner. I would take tapes from one building to another building. That was literally my job.
That's right.
And I remember one day my boss at the time, a production manager, was like, I have this job for you, and this is just for you, and it's so exciting. I'm like, okay, great, like, what are we doing? And so she takes me over to this closet, and she's like, you get to organize this closet. Now, I was like, okay, what do we do? Now, if I'm being totally honest, I was not a good PA. I was very obnoxious about it. That is wrong. I would not
100%.
recommend that. And I quickly learned, because I didn't do well, right? Like, I felt at the time, I was like, organizing a closet, like, I could be doing more than that. Now, that was me learning, because that's actually not a great way to be. I should have been like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to complete a task and do a great job and sort of have a good connection with this boss, and that's going to take me up. And that sort of entitlement that I displayed in that moment did not serve me well to continue at that job. And I really learned very quickly, like, oh, okay, this is not the way to be. And so that shifted as I moved on. And I say that honestly because we all sort of are figuring out how we feel about these different experiences and how to manage and deal with them. And so from my experience, I would recommend that it's really important to be engaged and excited. Nothing is beneath you. To not come in with a sense of entitlement. And I say that specifically about production because, like, honestly, organizing a closet is important. Like, making sure that the production closet is, like, ready to go so that producers and coordinators and managers can go in and get what they need. It actually is important. And I learned that as I started to really understand production and how important the nuts and bolts were, but I didn't know that at first. So I share that because I think that is something, an attitude to adopt as you start in the workforce, and to really check your entitlement. Because it'll come up sometimes, but just check it.
And attitude is part of performance, so.
100%. Absolutely. Nobody's going to work with you if you're going to be, no.
Oh, I always say you can teach someone the job, and also our jobs are continuously changing. Like, especially with AI, but you can't teach someone to have the positive attitude and collaboration. So I have hired people before that I know someone's resume and technically has check, check, check. I'm gonna have to spend more time training this person, but once I help train them, they're gonna be so collaborative and so enjoyable for the team that person will make such a better, broader teammate than the person that technically has the perfect resume.
Because hard work beats talent every day. And I don't know that we say that enough. We talk about how smart someone is, and there's so many skills that you bring to the table, but your attitude and your ability to do the work and to earn your stripes along the way, and to say yes to the things that even some of your peers may look at you funny and say, "Oh, you're doing that?" Yeah, because in the end, when you get the promotion or your manager sees you as the go-to person, which is ultimately what you want to be early in your career, you want to be the person that says to your manager, "What can I take off your plate? How can I help you?" So that when your manager is thinking of those on the team, everyone can't get promoted, there's not enough room. It's like a funnel. It gets tighter as you get further up to the top. So what are you doing to distinguish yourself? And you're so new, you're just starting. But think about those things now. It's like they say, dress for the job you want and not the one that you have. How you show up in that space is on you, right? However you are treated by way of office politics and building relationships in the building. Watch who goes to lunch with whom. Watch who's sitting in whose office, because there are relationships happening that you'll know nothing about. And you have to be careful how you're navigating environments, because you don't know who has relationships with whom. So build these relationships so that you are expanding your network, because the more people that know you, who can say they've had time with you, that can speak to your skill set, you want your work to get to your leadership before your personality does, for those of us with big personalities.
Absolutely. Do you have anything you wanted to add, Catherine?
I'll add to what Nikki was saying there. Watching who's going to lunch and who's in whose office, that means you've got to be in person, in real life.
Yeah.
So whenever you have that option, always be in the office, just as Brittany was saying. There's so much incidental interaction that you can have that's not scheduled, it's not on the calendar that we had this meeting, but I'm able to have this interaction with my colleagues, with my supervisors, that's meaningful. And we took care of some business, but I'm observing. I'm a sponge. I'm taking in what's going on around me. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm able to ask that colleague, like, "Hey, how'd your presentation go?" And then they're recognizing me as like, she's a thinker. She wants to know how it goes. We're having some conversation, and it's all building. And all of a sudden, I'm at the lunch table with them as well. So there's so many great reasons about being in person. So always be in person.
And you can't ear hustle if you're not in person.
Right. It's very opaque.
Right? Think about open spaces, cubicles. There's so much you'll learn by not saying anything or even asking, but just by, we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Ear hustle when you're in the building. You'd be surprised the things that you learn, and information is currency in any building.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of that, seconding, backing all of that up. And I think one of the things, and on the ear hustle front, I think additionally what I wanted to add is, as you are coming up in the business and sometimes you feel like you're doing these tasks or you're doing these things that you're not sure how it's helping you, a big part of what you're doing is observing. And I say this all the time, especially with producers, young people who are interested in working in production of any kind or a creative process of any kind. Everybody, producers, creative executives, people have different processes, and you can learn so much from different executives, different producers, and a lot of that learning comes from just listening, seeing how they're interacting with folks, asking if sometimes you can be on a call listening in on a call. You know, one of the things that we did, Netflix does a sort of mentorship program for young people of color, and we were one of the mentor groups. And so the folks that came in through our company, one of the things that I did was to say, just join all of our calls with our agents. And the reason for that is because they got to listen in and hear how we're interacting with our agents, what they're saying, like what we're selling, how we're talking to them. They wouldn't have access to that otherwise. So ask for things like that. You'd be surprised sometimes that you can, listen into something. And listening in and observing and getting access is an enormous part of learning, so that kind of, strategic thinking. So it's not just about like you're organizing a closet, but you are there. You have the opportunity to watch and to learn from people.
And then you go run and you get your manager and you say, look at this fabulous closet.
That's right,
better than
100%.
me.
Check out the stapler section, check out this. And then I think, what I'd love to hear from you all is that working in this business, there's a lot of problem solving, and there's a lot of people problem solving. I say that so much of half of what I do is like handle people's feelings, which is a lot. But also, just to back up what you all are saying about attitude, is I would say probably for me, and I'm sure you all do too, once or twice a month, I get an email from someone, hey, what do you think about this showrunner? I know you work with them on this. Or what do you think about this archival producer? I know you work with them on this. So leaving places with a good energy, even if you've had to leave in a situation that maybe you didn't want to or you got left a little bit early, I really recommend not burning bridges because
These circles are small.
yes,
They're
these
very
circles
small.
are
And I
very
think,
small.
Nikki, you've said this as well, like someone's always watching.
Yes, and
Always watching.
And that's not to give you a scare that you have to be so worried that you can't. But it's more to remind everybody that leaving places with positivity and with warmth and with good energy, is just better for the soul, but truly does make a difference because you don't know when it's about to pop off.
Cool,
Someone
you
asked
are right.
somebody.
You said pop off, because you are right about pop off. So here's the thing. It's an incestuous industry. Media and entertainment is incestuous. It is not 6 degrees of separation. It's more like 1. I may not know you, but I know someone who knows you. So you're 100% right around be careful, young in your career, junior, you're just starting out. Try not to burn bridges. You will burn bridges. It's part of the experience. It's part of developing. It's part of growing. But where you can, try to preserve these relationships because, and I love this term, the toes you step on today may be connected to the ass that you have to kiss tomorrow. I didn't know when we were board members together that one day I would be at the helm of the foundation and that she would be my chair. Do you understand what the chair is? She's my boss. So just know for 5 years we sat together in board meetings. 5 years. You could not have told me, even though I know God had my steps ordered, that I would eventually have a different type of relationship with KB, such that we're like peanut butter and jelly. But I didn't know that then. So you don't know who's in the room with you. That magnifying glass is out, and oftentimes that's where you'll find that you have a sponsor, not a mentor, a sponsor that you don't even know has their eye on you and is taking your work, your reputation, your hallway reputation is the things that people say about you that you don't know they're saying about you when you're not in the room. You want that to be a positive narrative so that when that leader goes into another room with their peers and they're talking about you, they're taking you with them. That's someone lending equity, their equity, to you so that you can have a come up. So be mindful of those relationships, and even if you've had a burn bridge moment, or you've had a painful experience with a manager or with a senior leader, it's okay. You're going to burn bridges, it's going to happen, but talk to a mentor, talk to a sponsor so that you can at least try to salvage the relationship, because it's like recruiters. Be mindful how you talk to assistants, the folks who are in the lobby checking you in, the receptionists, because the world is just that small, and everyone, for the most part, we've got campers and climbers, but for the climbers, you never know where you're going to see the same faces again and in different positions. So just be good to people as a rule of thumb. Be good to people because you don't know where you're going to see them again, and that goes back to the right and to the left. You'd be surprised how you all will influence each other's careers. KB is influencing my career. I don't know that you thought of it in that way, but she is. Be mindful how you talk to people and be mindful of your tone, emotional intelligence, intent, and impact. You need both.
Yeah. And it can be hard sometimes because I always say careers are a jungle gym versus a straight ladder. And you're going to have some people that you see, especially early on in your career, that are being more aggressive, that are maybe not treating everyone as well. And you're going, well, they just got promoted and I didn't. And it can be so tough to say, why do I stay genuine? Why do I stay? But I promise you, it will, come to a head. And so it might be situations where you're like, that advice, I don't think it's really working. We promise you it does. It might just take 6 more months, but you're then on a better team. Or I grew up in the Midwest, went to school in the South, no connection to New York City aside from an internship in college when I lived here. My very first job at 21 years old in 2008, every single job after that, and been at numerous companies, were all because other people said things that I didn't even realize. I worked with her and so you have no idea the networking. The quick story happened a month ago. If you recently saw, there was during Halloween, a huge Exosphere campaign with Kraft and their marshmallow fluff, and it was exciting the first time we've had Kraft, and there's 30 people on the email chain, tons of creative agencies and our in-house creative team and the media team, and we get through the full execution and everyone's celebrating and it's on Exosphere, and I get an email on the side from this girl, Jackie, and her name's different because little did I know, she reported to me 14 years ago, but she's been married since, and she was like, Brittany, I don't know if you remember, but I actually reported to you as your media assistant when I was 21 years old at WPP. She's now a VP at a media agency. Wow. I'm on the sales side, and she is now giving me so much info, and we haven't seen each other in 12 years, and so don't always remember, as you were saying, right, don't always just look up and make sure you're positive to people above. Remember, treat people as you start to get higher in your career the way you want to be treated. And again, you never know where people will end up because, again, 14 years later, and here we are working together, and she's my client, and she's helping me mostly because of the relationship we had 14 years ago.
So she's allowing you to even show up even better with your new colleagues because you have this former relationship that you're now leveraging.
Exactly.
Hence why I tell you it's not 6 degrees of separation.
That's so great. That's a great story.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, and I have a question before we head to questions from you all, is that, I'm sure all of us have been in moments where we've had to problem solve quickly, whether it's with other colleagues or whether it's some sort of physical problem that's happening with production or a creative process. And so I know it's a big question, but I'd love to hear from everybody, one story, an example of a problem that you solved that you're super proud of and how you kind of managed it, whether it was something, with personalities or there was something sort of exterior that was happening and how you solved it. Just because I think some of those skills in terms of how we problem solve and how we do it quickly are so important in production and creative work. Things are always, always, always popping off. And what I say to my teams with production, I said, if we go in trying to be perfect, we are just destined for problems because that's not the goal. The goal is to build a really strong foundation that can withstand all of the inevitable problems because that's sort of just the nature of the work that we do. So I'd love to hear from everybody, just something that you feel like displays good problem-solving skills.
I'll jump in with an idea here. And this was coming up in my mind as we were all talking, and this is probably not the best example to bring up because it's all going to jar us, but going back to the pandemic, HR, guess what we became? We became the school nurse. And so we had to work very closely with our leadership to determine how are we going to handle this moment. And we were all of us, all of society was thrust into this environment that none of us had experience with. Largely, most of us didn't have experience handling a pandemic. And I think what we leveraged in that moment was a lot of the foundation of trust that we had amongst us on our HR team and with our executives, but with our employees. So it makes me think about a lot of what we said here thematically around winning people over in the small moments, because the big moments will come unexpectedly, i.e. the pandemic in March of 2020, and we want to, we want that employee, we want that colleague to listen to us and to trust us that we have the best interests at heart. And so I guess I bring this up in the sense that everything that you do is a building block to something else. Sometimes you know what you're building, sometimes you don't. All of a sudden we're like, AI is like we're having to force feed our employees AI. I wasn't expecting, that wasn't exactly on my bingo card a few years ago. The pandemic wasn't either. So in the sense of like being ready for the unexpected, you really, every transaction that you have, every interaction that you have with employees, cleaning out the closet, for instance, being in the basement in Long Island, having that interaction with someone who was a subordinate who's now at a peer partner level, like it all matters. All of this is part of a larger tapestry, maybe a quilt work, if you will, and some of the fabric is really flashy and sexy. Some of the fabric is kind of mundane and dull, but all of it contributes to the larger experience that you're having as a professional. So I would encourage you to embrace the challenging moments, and when you get knocked down, if you don't get the yes that you were hoping for, don't be dissuaded. Don't give up. You're going to learn something in that moment. The job I'm in right now, the first time this job came open, they passed on me. Not only did they pass on me, they just literally didn't call me at all, even though I had been encouraged to apply by someone else. And then they hired somebody else. And a year later, that individual had left. And then all of a sudden, they wanted to talk to me. And I threw my hat in the ring again. And so they were willing to talk to me then. And ultimately, I landed the job. But I didn't get too wrapped up in not getting it the first time. Just don't let it get you down too much when you don't get that yes. So I don't know. I'm sorry. It's a lot around the idea of
wonderful.
Problem solving, but everything can be a learning experience.
Yes.
So just take it all in with that set of lenses on.
Don't let it hit your confidence.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to protect your confidence at all costs, right? Nikki or Brittany?
I'm still thinking.
I have one. Again, it goes back. Thank you for saying COVID helped. It was June, or May or June, when a lot of the graduations were taking place. At the time, my role at Google was selling YouTube, and my manager had recently left on maternity leave. So I was taking her role, but the clients we worked with, absolutely, the ones I was taking, loved her. So I wanted them to like me, but you didn't want to step on the toes and put her down by any way, because she was coming back. So what was something creative and innovative that I could do that I stood out while she was gone, but also didn't step on her toes? Well, if those of you remember, back in 2020, the Obamas actually agreed to do their own big graduation ceremony on YouTube. And this came together very quickly, and it's going to air on YouTube. So our sales team, my team was in charge of selling that, and I had counterparts that were also in charge of selling that. I was helping oversee WPP, very large agency that Google is trying to work with more and more. So I went to my boss and I said, they care about sponsorship so much. Could we just give them first right of refusal, give them the idea for like an hour before we take it to everyone else? He's like, Brittany, why? I go, I just think it'll go so far with their chief investment lead. And you can tell my boss is going, you just took on this role? Like, really? You think? And I go, I promise you, my gut tells me we should do this. And we took it to WPP, and we literally said, we're about to take this to the market. You have 1 hour to figure out if you have any clients that want to be a part of this. They lit up like a Christmas tree and said, this is what we need. We've just been in all these new business pitches, and they're telling us we need to be more innovative. In less than an hour, they had 2 clients. We sold through. They were the 2 clients, ended up being the sponsors. And long story made short, fast forward, we ended up, of course, getting so much more money in the future because of that one relationship. And I quickly was able to build a relationship with an opportunity that didn't hurt the relationship my boss had, because it was a net new opportunity. So always remember, you're going to end up in situations where your boss leaves, or a colleague lets you take something on, or they ask you. Figure out a way to stand out on your own, versus it's oftentimes easy to say, oh, I can do it better than them. Figure out a way to do it your own unique way, so that it's not and alienating your colleague, even if maybe they weren't doing that great of a job. Stay away from that and find your own lane. I was able to do that both internally and externally. So those situations always happen. It takes a while to think through how you can make that happen, but just really focus on how you can be unique versus following the footsteps of maybe someone that wasn't doing a great job.
That was good.
I really love that. I love that idea of thinking about your strengths as opposed to thinking about how am I better than XYZ, right? Just like always keeping it here. That's a great one. Thank you.
That was very inspiring from both of you. So thank you, because that triggered for me a problem. So at the foundation, we have partners. We don't do this work by ourselves. While we're the bridge builder and we connect students at universities and colleges back to corporations, we're simply, in many ways, helping curate this experience, preparing the students, and then ensuring that the opportunities are right on the ground, because we don't do go for work as part of an internship experience. It's a textured experience. So having worked at HBO for 16 years, transitioning out, now I'm at the foundation. As you know, mergers and acquisitions, they're happening all across the industry. Organizations are getting bigger, some are getting smaller. Part of the challenge that we have at the foundation is all the media and entertainment swirl. Everyone is literally in bed together. And so this notion of once upon a time, Discovery was a standalone organization. Warner Media was a standalone organization. Before Warner Media, it was Time Warner. We had about 9 divisions. All of those 9 divisions paid a fee to be a part of the Emma Bowen Foundation. So that was cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. The money was coming in, honey. And then what happened is, as you know, no more Warner Media. Now is Warner Media Discovery. And so part of the challenge was, how do we keep our brand relevant, front-facing, and still be able to collect on the coffers, on the monies that we need in order to survive and thrive, right? Because you're just surviving at first, and then you turn into thriving. We had to figure out a way to have multiple touch points in each of those organizations, the legacy side of the business, those who had been in the organization for some time, had relationships with us. Then there's the new side of the world. They don't know us as well. We had to leverage our partners who were already in the building and were banging on drums for us to go sit with the new leaders so that we could ensure that one side of the world stayed in community with us. The problem is that we would have lost a lot of money. We have this happening in pockets around our world, in our orbit of EBF, where the goal is to keep those who are in the fold. We don't like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We want to keep everybody in. We've had partners who've been in the fold for 30-something years. That's a long time. But we also have to make room for the new. And how do you do that without threatening those who have already been in the fold, but still create space to really honor the new folks who come in? So part of our problem solving is going into these organizations and having relationships at all levels. Not just at the top where people leave to go for a better opportunity, folks in the middle and on the ground, the campers who can bang on drums for us and continue to raise an awareness and an energy about the work we're doing. Especially, we haven't gone there, but in this current climate of DEI and all things the current administration and the way in which these executive orders are coming down, it's not nice. There's nothing nice and tidy about it. And so to have to constantly pivot or keep one's head below the parapet, still do the work, still show up, still motivate and encourage those who are doing the work, all the while being mindful of where we're in rooms and who else is in the room seeing the work that we do, because the work doesn't stop. So the problem is layered for us because of the work we do. We sit at the center of DEI, and in many ways that is the value prospect that we bring to our partners. So how do you do that in an environment that's been told DEI is bad? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna stop right there. Talk about problem solving.
Yeah. And I want to get to questions, but I'll share very quickly. And I think, the amount of problems that come at me every day, it's wild. And they're such wild problems sometimes. One of the things, and so for me, I've had different phases of my career, but I now have 2 young children, so I can only take on so much additional stress. But it's about also just like keeping yourself, being strategic and keeping your level of stress, trying to really control that so that you can actually solve the problem as opposed to getting into a panic mode. And that's taken me quite a few years to sort of learn to figure out, okay, this is a big problem and I need my best in order to solve it, right? one of the things that was a big thing for me is when I was trying to sell my first TV show. I had just transitioned out of a business with a different business partner, and we wanted to sell our first TV show as Culture House, and it was extremely difficult. Selling a TV show is very, very difficult. And so we wanted to make the show about women in hip hop. And so we thought, okay, these are like the most entertaining women in the world. I won't go into too much detail, but it took us a long time. It took me like 2 years to build the right team, get the right executive producers, get the people on board. We built an incredible team. And that, I think, was us. That was just like the fortitude and the resilience and following up and doing your research and getting the right people involved. Now, we went around, so now we had like Dream Hampton and Troy Carter and MC Light, and all these people are on our show. We couldn't sell it. Nobody bought the show. Netflix passed, Hulu passed, HBO passed, anyone that you can think of, name a person, and they passed. And I was shocked because I'm like, these are the most entertaining women in the world. I don't understand why we cannot get this show sold. Lots of reasons for that. Ultimately, I could have said, okay, well, I guess this is not happening. Instead, I really tried to figure out, okay, how can I go back out without being so persistent that I'm annoying, but persistent enough to be like, this is a product that you all need to pay attention to, right? So in that situation, I did many things, and I sort of kept on refining the pitch, adding, and being really resilient about it. And that's because I believed in that work. There's a lot of shows that I've pitched that have not sold, and I'm like, that's good, it might not be great, let's let it go. I knew this one was great. And so I did something where I was like, we got to think differently. And part of it is, how do you problem solve in a way that's sort of unexpected? So I emailed a bunch of CEOs of big studios, and I can say this now because it's been a while, and some of these people I know now. And I just pretended like I had met them at a party. And I was like, hi, it was so great to meet you last week and tell you a little bit about my show. I would love to follow up with you and your team. What do I have to lose? And so I had two, actually, CEOs respond to me. And so ultimately...
This is sales right here.
Yeah. And so,
Selling.
and it was like and so we attached Lionsgate to the show. Then because Lionsgate then had a deal with Warner Music Group, we attached Warner Music Group to the show. So it was like, now I'm like, okay, I've got Dream, I've got Troy, I've got MC Light. I had confirmed like 10 incredible artists to be in the show, including Queen Latifah, Tierra Whack, like folks that have big followings. And now I have Lionsgate, and I have WMG. Like, I had built this package. It took me 4 years to build that package. And eventually, I went back to Netflix, and they were like, oh, we still don't know. Music is so hard. I'm like, guys, you have to do this. Now, ultimately, what happened was, just to be very transparent, they hired their first Black woman to work on the doc side. The first Black woman to work on the doc side, and she bought the show. And it took us so long to get it done, but it was many different factors. It was us continuing to refine, me being really bullish about it, but also having the right people come into place. And so sometimes you're not sure how something is going to get solved, and you have to be creative and do all different kinds of things, especially if you believe in something. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how it would turn out, but it did, and it was amazing, and we did this great show for Netflix. It did very well, and had all the stuff. But I guess my point there is that I wasn't sure how that was going to turn out. I was just following my instinct because I believed in this thing. So if you have something that you feel like this is a winner, figure out creative ways to solve around it. And sometimes you're going to have something that feels good, but it might not be a winner. It's okay to let those things go, too.
Mm-hmm. Because what ultimately might even appear to be a setback is ultimately, again, a set up for something better, but you don't know that in the moment. So from a spiritual place, when you're told no, or to your very point, things don't happen the way you want them to, it's because the universe, whoever you believe in, has something better for you, but you had to go through that to get to the better. Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what happened for us, right?
Yeah.
I wanted, that was longer than I wanted, I'm sorry, but let's get into your questions. Okay, so, all right. Let's start in the front here. How do you want to do this? Do you mind coming up? Let's make a line at the mic.
Oh, there's two. One line on this side and one line
Yeah,
on
so you all can line up at the mics. Great. Oh, man. Should have started this earlier.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, I love this.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My name is Shauna Swain. I'm a senior at the Fashion Institute of Technology studying advertising and marketing communications with a focus in film and television. You all kind of spoke to my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, especially what you just said, Ray, about persistence instead of annoying. You all gave great insight about once you finally get in front of someone, how to stand out and make yourself known and all the things, which are great. How do you beat the machine, though, to get in front of the person? And when I was thinking of the question, I was focusing it on Catherine at the end, because HR, with AI, like I just did a interview, it was asynchronous, where I had to answer the questions, but it was nobody. It was just like, you're answering the questions, you record it, and then you're like, you look at it and you have the chance to refine it, but it's still like, oh no, that was terrible. Wait, no, let me redo it. Wait, no, just forget it. How do you beat the machine in order to get in front of the decision makers so that your personality can shine through?
Right. Well, gosh, that's a tough one. Not every employer is using that type of method. Not every employer has an applicant tracking system that is automatically eliminating candidates based upon an algorithm. So that's not the case with every employer. That's not what we do at Hearst. We're not using video interviewing the way you're talking about there either. So that is a really tough scenario. I would say in that situation, I would try to triangulate to who do I know who works at that company. As Brittany was saying, it was like she had several experiences where someone put in a good word for her. So can you figure out, do you have any connection to somebody who works there? Go to LinkedIn, figure out, like, is there someone who maybe is, you said FIT is where you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, someone who was an FIT associated student or faculty member who can help you get your foot in the door, because what you want is for someone else who works at that company to say, I'm sorry, will you say your name one more time?
Shauna Swain.
Shauna Swain. So you want someone else in that company to go over to whoever that decision maker is, someone who's closer to the recruiting effort, and say, hey, I just want to put in a good word for Shauna Swain. I know her through XYZ, or I have this first or secondary connection to her. And I'm telling you, we won't waste our time getting to know her. So I'd encourage you to try to sleuth out, Nancy drew out, who you can connect with, who can help you with that.
And if I could dovetail
Thank
off
you.
of that, I'm surprised at how many people cold reach out to people on LinkedIn and somebody responds.
They encourage
So
us to do
don't
it,
sleep
yeah.
on LinkedIn
Yeah.
and cold, like do
Yeah.
a search on the company and reach out to all the people. You don't have anything to lose.
That's
And
right.
one other thing, in case I know these lines are long, so I'll make this quick. Clean up your social media, people. We're talking about selling yourself. You might need to delete some things. Like you've had years of putting content out there. Is it curating the message of the brand that you're trying to put forward? Because
Yes.
employers are going to look and they're going to look at your LinkedIn. Make your LinkedIn sing. Have a smiley face picture there. Have a banner photo. Have all the correct details. It has to do a lot of heavy lifting for you. A resume and a LinkedIn can't just simply get you the job with no questions asked. It can get you passed over, no questions asked. So make it look good. The curbside appeal needs to be there.
Absolutely. Yes. Next.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Charles, but you can call me Gabby. I've been working in advertising, specifically like digital media partnerships. It is not really what I'm interested in. I just like the salary. But yeah, so I'm looking to transition, and you all have absolutely like transitioned through different types of roles and different companies. And something I'm just wondering is if you have any recommendations on how to switch careers without completely starting over, because I will admit, obviously internships are really for college students, even though there are some ones, available, but also honestly, the thing that I really struggle with as I'm searching is that at least I feel like if I transition to another career, I have to take an entry-level role, which makes sense. But financially, I can't afford to take like an entry-level role, and so I'm trying to take my transferable skills and really position myself as like someone who can do a role that's slightly above, but yeah.
Great.
Anyway.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I just want to move
Yeah,
quickly.
sorry.
But that's a great question. No, don't be sorry. Any quick responses on that?
I would say and this just is an advice too, is are there any mentors or sponsors or former people you've worked for that are at companies that know your skill set that could help you? And that's the other thing I would say. You could have the coolest job in the world, but who you work for really matters. So I have followed people throughout my career because that changes your day to day. It changes what you bring home. Like, I see how much happier I am when I'm working. You're never gonna like every single person you're working with or for, but as you continue to follow good people. So I would say, is there anyone you've worked for or with that can advocate for you in another company and say, while they might not have this exact background in the resume, you have these skill sets and you're willing to learn. So I would lean on that versus the cold calling could be tougher knowing your resume.
Closed mouths don't get fed. Tell everybody in your network that you're looking, that you trust, that won't interfere with the current job you have, because we need to keep the job we have because you have a lifestyle that you have to continue to maintain. But talk to people. You'd be surprised who's in your network, who knows someone who can say to you, oh, call so-and-so. Leverage your network and your network's network. The answer is already in your network.
All right, thank you. And sorry, I'm going to go through these relatively quickly because I want to try to get to everybody if we can. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sarah Gadira. I'm a freelance script supervisor. And I was thinking of Ray when I asked this question, but for anyone who wants to touch on this, when we're like working on a production and there's like not a lot of time to get to know people, you don't want to like interrupt someone when they're working to introduce yourself. Like, how do you leave a good impression so they can think of you for your next project?
Make people laugh. Humor brings down walls. If you have a sense of humor, leverage it at the right time, in the right moments. But people remember being around someone who made them laugh, and they're going to want to gravitate towards that. A moment of levity at the right time, well placed, can be a real cementing moment for others, I think.
Love that. And I would say emails. Send sometimes notes. Sometimes people are working on a show and I maybe have not interacted with them, and I get an email. It's like, oh my God, I had such a great time working on this show, and give me a specific example or something, and I will remember you. So don't be afraid to send notes, because in real time it might not feel like you have time, but send a note, show that you had a good experience, give some specificity, and don't be afraid to put yourself forward that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Curtis. I'm a recent graduate from Morgan State University and an emerging producer and documentary filmmaker. I wanted to ask, being on like your postgraduate journey, there's a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys, and you talked about protecting your confidence. And this is like the first time you're experiencing a lot of rejection. So like, how do you protect your confidence and kind of keep going in those kind of, moments?
Yes. I'm about prayer. I stay prayed up. I center myself. I'm about meditation. I'm about self-care. We talked about mental health and wellness. It's okay. You are okay. Everything isn't for you. You are not for everyone. It is okay that you are going to be on a circuitous journey. Embrace it. Embrace the nerves. Embrace the celebrate the failure. We've been taught to shy away and hide and be embarrassed. It's okay. Embrace your journey. Find what centers you, whether that's, crafting, vision board, manifestation box, where you just write on Post-its and drop them in the box. And then you go back in a few months and you'd be surprised at things that you've manifested. But you have to get at your core, at your center, be okay with failure. And be okay when people say no. Embrace it. It starts with you. You take care of you first, and then you can have your shield up, your mask, because we all have to have a mask for the outside world. But take that mask off and take care of you from the inside first.
Yes. And yeah, people are this part has got to be impenetrable. That's exterior, this is interior. So create that barrier. You got this.
Hi, my name is Brianna De Jesus. Thank you guys so much for being here. My question is kind of picking back off of Culture House in the Trenches section off of Substack. I love it. I love that so much because I feel like it's very transparent to show like how a production team is to the outer world, because I'm interested in community partnerships. So my question would be, for us, what would be, aside from culture fit, what is the nuanced brand or storytelling that we should look for when applying for these businesses and companies? What should we as applicants look for that's nuanced? Like, for example, Culture House being so transparent with their production team and showing that, they're actually humans aside from cogs in the machine, something like that.
I would look for companies in situation, I've been even though I've worked at larger companies, even the two teams I was on at Google were more startups within Google. Sphere, even though it's a, $2 billion plus venue, we're extremely young. So you get to do a lot more things than just, sales and marketing. I'm with legal, I'm with finance, I'm with comms all the time. So as you're looking at these companies, I would look for companies where you think there's an opportunity to grow and you think that you're gonna learn a lot more. As we started at the beginning discussing, you're so young. You don't know exactly what you want to do yet. So how can you be at a company where, yes, you're applying for the job that you think you want, but you're going to have access to learn so many other job functions, and you might pivot in that direction.
That's good. Access is great. Thank you for reading In the Trenches. But yeah, I think that's right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Shayna. I'm a graphic designer and a practicing web designer. And I want to ask, you guys have had such extensive careers. I was wondering, what about your career and even the job that you have now that made you show up every day? What brings you so much joy in your job?
Ooh, what brings me joy every day in my job, and I'm unapologetically brown in the skin that I'm in, is that I work with students who look like me every day. And it started in 2020 at the top of the pandemic. If we ever needed to see ourselves, right, you have to see so you know what you can be. And this notion of climate and culture and the way we show up in the world, sometimes you need someone who's unapologetically all the things that you are to give you permission to proceed.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. Yes.
Hi, my name is Genesis Hines. I'm currently a senior at NYU studying media, culture, and communication, and I'm really eager to go into entertainment, PR, and talent relations. And I love all your advice about staying true to yourself and authentic. So I'd love to hear about any advice on developing workplace confidence and setting healthy boundaries, as someone entering their early career.
I do think there can be some fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with leverage. I've leveraged that in my career. So don't be shy about discreetly leveraging that. And I think that you'll find that with every passing step that you take, and in fact at the Hearst Tower where I work, it's this beautiful building. I remember it was a couple years, I always just felt like, what am I going to be like Bambi on ice? Am I going to fall in the middle of the lobby or something like that? So, nerves can get to us, but I think with every successful day, you just have one more moment to trust yourself and realize I can handle this. And you know what? Next time, give me something harder, because I can take that on as well. So I think it's step by step, but believe in yourself.
Perfect. Thank you.
Nice. Yes.
Hello, my name is Desiree Monet. I'm currently at Brooklyn College. I'm an NDTV producer, specifically in the faith-based filmmaking world. And I have a question. Brittany, you mentioned that it's a red flag when someone says I a lot in interviews. But I also remember you, Catherine, saying you have to sell yourself. So how do you sell yourself without saying I all the time?
No, that's a great point. I think the best way to do it is to talk about a situation, whether, coming out of college, you talk about your role, but you also make it clear that it was a team doing that. So whether it was community service, a school project, you could say you were the president, the secretary, the treasurer, the leader of this, but how you worked with the full team. So really try to incorporate, yes, this was my role in it, but make it clear that you enjoyed, hopefully, with the other people, whether they were above you, below you, younger, older, so that it's just showing that you're ready to collaborate and you're ready to. So it's a great point.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Don't make it that you did everything, because it's impossible, especially with filmmaking. You need to talk about your experience and how you collaborated.
Were you the producer? Were you the director?
Yeah.
But how much you enjoyed and how much you valued the other people in that setting, because then it really shows it's going to be true teamwork, and everyone wants to work. Who doesn't want to work with someone that's excited and team-minded, because nothing is solo anymore whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, I'm sorry that we didn't get to everyone's questions, but thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day today. It's going to be fantastic, and wishing all of you luck.
Thank you so much. Let's give them another big round of applause because we just learned magic. Thank you so much again. Amazing. So, because we owed it to you, now we have the slide of the podcast. Please make sure you take out your phones and scan that QR code for you to listen this podcast. First episode just came out yesterday. This is the extra step that you need. So you got great gems and insights from right here, this amazing conversation. This podcast is going to continue. Thank you so much, ladies, again, for your insights, for the knowledge, and for amazing conversation. All right? We can walk you off the stage.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
Come on, we need them to get excited. They just share amazing time. Thank you again.